It is MLB Live versus Lock here on Awesemo.com. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. As we are here to break down this Friday slate, 12-game slate here. Jeff, man, how's it going, man?
I'm doing really good. Glad to get the baseball season going for me on the first show for Awesemo. So, yeah, excited. I mean, this slate has been, I've been looking at it all day. It's a pretty juicy one, to be honest. I mean, a lot of big pitchers on there, a lot of ways you can go. With stacks, especially. We got Coors, like, first time. Yankees in an insane spot. So, there's lots to talk about, obviously.
Yeah, I guess the unfortunate if you're a DFS player, the one thing we're not like seeing right now is this report on ESPN by Jeff Passan where he said Rob Manfred told the MLB Players Association Executive Director Tony Clark today that if the sport doesn't do a better job managing the coronavirus, it could shut down the season. That is not great news we want to hear on a Friday afternoon.
No, it's not the news you want to hear. And I mean, like, I don't want to take this too lightly, but you know, the MLB commissioner saying his league has to do a better job of managing it. I mean, maybe just he has to do a better job of managing it. I don't know, but either way, you know, I someone who covers the PGA a lot. The PGA went through a little bit of a rough spot at the start too, and then they tightened things up. Their commissioner was a little more, you know, firm and had a better message. But hopefully, baseball will come to the same sort of conclusion and tighten things up a little bit. So I really would like to see this season get in personally. So, I mean, as a DFS player, as just a fan, there's not much you can do. You can just sit back and obviously you gotta watch the news a little closer.
Yeah, with me coming from the MMA side of things, what I primarily talk about is the UFC has done a fairly good job. Bellator came back last week, so it's starting to kind of come in more. But I think it's all about these protocols, and I think you look at what the NBA is doing. And obviously, it's great to have the NBA back. I was sitting there watching the games last night on the couch, had a beverage in hand, was enjoying that one. But I think the other big news we got to mention before we kind of get into tonight's slate is starting tomorrow. If we got a doubleheader, it's 7 innings.
Yeah, I mean that's the big news, right? They changed the doubleheaders obviously to 2 7-inning games. So obviously for DFS purposes, I mean, basically cross those games off the list. I mean, you can't take a hitter from a 7-inning game. Starting pitching, I guess right now with pitchers still getting like their pitch counts up and stuff like that, maybe that becomes into the discussion. I could see that, but he's still getting credited for a win and stuff like that. But hitting. How do you play that when there's 5, 6, 10 other games on a slate with 9 innings? So,
yeah, me and Adam were talking about that last night when we did the early bird podcast for today's slate. Of we're a week now into the baseball season, and kind of some of the takeaways. And his big takeaway was starting pitching of what we've seen in terms of that. He mentioned about some things that we just didn't expect. Heaney getting pulled by the Angels after 65 pitches the other night. Is that kind of your big takeaway after 1 week?
Yeah, the pitching, I think I'm not necessarily surprised by it because, again, we've seen this before. I mean, managers and teams are just really cautious, right? So you expect them early in this kind of like limited training camp. That was the one thing I'm not that shocked about. I mean, pitchers getting worked in, pitchers getting pulled early. It's something you really have to consider. And I mean, you have a couple pitchers on this slate that look tempting, but you can't really trust them. I mean, their upside seems to be extremely limited. So I guess and the other way of that conversation is maybe they make for like nice GPP plays, but it's a pretty steady slate in terms of pitchers on here. So I'm not sure if you necessarily need to just start taking chances like that. It's going to be one of those things. It just makes a variance filled sport obviously even more variable. So.
Of course, we are here for the next 55 minutes or so leading up to NBA Live before lock. Of course, we are sponsored by SuperDraft. Start lining up those questions right now in the chat. We'll get to them as we go on. But let me ask you this. I think when we look at two pitchers tonight that likely are going to have high ownerships, one of them we project to be the highest ownership, that being Luis Castillo going for the Reds. Of course, when I did the early bird podcast, it was still up the air. Would it be him or Bauer? But Castillo's going to get the start here. So if you could only take one, who do you want? Luis Castillo or Mike Clevenger?
So, I mean, this obviously is like a loaded question. It comes at what format are you playing? What are you doing? Cash game lineup. You probably just take Castillo, and it's kind of I don't want to say it's a free spot for people tonight, but at 8,000, he's way underpriced. He's coming off a really good performance against the same Tigers team. 8K, like his price just is not parallel to what his upside is in this spot. I mean, he absolutely dominated the Tigers, got unlucky there, got really unlucky not to get a win there in his last outing. And now he's still only 8K. It makes no sense for a pitcher who's come out, got a good K rate and all that to be priced there. So, again, it comes down to format, though. If I'm making GPP lineups and I want to take one of these guys, Clevenger still is the better pitcher. He's still got the better upside. And his ownership, I mean, just, projecting, obviously, I'll drop a little bit from Awesemo.com. His ownership is like a third less of what Castillo is projecting, right? So in ownership and stuff like that, I think we need to take into account Clevenger's upside. And I think this is a really good match for him, too, against Minnesota, who's kind of a soft-hitting team. I like it. Like, I really like Mike Clevenger. So obviously the easy thing is just pair both of these guys. But quite frankly, like, the ownership on those two pitchers together are going to be insane themselves. So,
yeah, when you go over to Awesemo.com and being an Awesemo Plus member, you can get all these projections. And one of the things, the difference between, say, FanDuel and DraftKings, two platforms here. FanDuel, we got them at 19.3%, me and Castillo. DraftKings, 44%. And right. So, but I just, we always talk about trying to be contrarian with your lineups, when you're in these big GPPs. And I just feel that Clevenger Castillo is going to be a very chalky play tonight.
It's going to be really chalky. And again, everyone's talking about Castillo, and rightfully so. It's a great matchup there. But I mean, I'll throw out a couple red flags. I mean, first of all, generally when pitchers go up against the same team, like so close like this, it generally favors the hitter a little bit. They're getting to see the same pitchers so close in time frame, so they're getting to see the same pitchers, and the batters will adjust just better in that situation. So that's what that was the first kind of thing I saw about Castillo. It's not like I don't like the situation, and realistically, the price still makes him a great target. But the other factor is, I mean, there are a lot of pitchers, and we're going to talk about them like game through game here, but I mean, you got a guy like Mike Minor at 9,200 in a great pitcher's ballpark going up. He's got a really good K rate too. I really like going up to him. Obviously, it's 1,200. You're gonna have to save a little bit, but again, I don't mind the idea of paying up a little bit more at pitcher tonight, because I think that's going to be the contrarian spot. Everyone's going to want to pay up for the big hitters. Got a Coors game, the Yankees, a couple other stacks that are priced up. Everyone wants to get these guys in their lineup. And the way to do that is Castillo. So by not going him, you're definitely going to, if he busts, I mean, you are going to have a big leg up. So whenever these situations arise, I generally try and get off it, because, it's pitching, it's variable. And in this season, especially, who knows what's going to happen. So.
Yeah, a lot of unknowns when you're talking about a 60-game season. And I had MLB Network on while I was in here for intentional talk, and they were talking about the issues with the Mets and the close position. They're talking about do you just pull the plug at this point? It's only a 60-game season. You can't let you don't want to sit there and see if someone can work out the kinks. Sometimes it's got to be the quick pull there. I will mention we always talk about stacks here. And Terry McBride has a great article up at Awesemo.com about two different stacks of two different teams that he mentioned, the White Sox and the Braves. We'll get into those two teams as we go on. Red Sox and Yankees, the national game on MLB Network tonight. Red Sox and Yankees, Montgomery going for the Yankees and Weber for the Red Sox. What interests you on this one?
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Montgomery making his debut, obviously, I think most people are just looking at this, and I don't think most people are considering the Red Sox here at all. So I guess, from a contrarian standpoint, you could give them a little bit of a look. But again, I just feel like there's too many other good spots here. So, I mean, I think the main thing that attracts me in this game is obviously everyone's thinking about the top of the Yankees lineup. But realistically, if you go down, I mean, we've got Gary Sanchez here who, has started the season off terribly. And it's just a good opportunity possibly to get on. So, I mean, Aaron Hicks down at the bottom, Brent Gardner, I kind of like that going with, the back end of the New York Yankees lineup here, I think. So basically what I'm saying is I think that you can stack this game without going too uber contrarian. by going with like a guy like Gardner who hasn't got off to a good start, and Aaron Hicks who's hitting 5th today, it looks like. So yeah, I think the way I would attack this is try and look for a little bit of value in the back end, and maybe getting a guy like Gardner off the mat here, because it's a good matchup, obviously.
You got Stanton, and I just pulled up DraftKings. He's 5,700. He's the most expensive hitter on the board in this one. He got your eye at all?
Yeah, a little bit. Actually, it looks like the Yankees are sitting him possibly, so I guess you don't have to consider that. I think they just released their lineup, so.
DraftKings has Stanton in the 4-hole.
Oh no! Okay, sorry, I had the wrong game up. Yeah. Obviously, Stanton's playing tonight. Sorry about that, guys.
They do not have now. Gary Sanchez is not in the lineup.
Yeah, Sanchez in the lineup. Stanton is playing, obviously. So at the top, I mean, Stanton and Aaron Judge match up perfectly in this lineup, in this matchup. So you can go with them at the top, but realistically, there's probably a couple other spots I like a little bit better. So we'll get to those, obviously. But with the Coors, I would probably, again, I think that the way to go here is target Hicks, target Gardner on the back end. I think they got. I think this is a matchup where those two could get off the mat a little bit. So Hicks has actually been playing well already. So I just kind of like him already.
I guess we can kind of skip ahead to that game in Coors, because I know there's a lot of questions in the chat about that game of whether to fade Coors or not to fade Coors. I saw one comment in the chat of, hey, can you put a Rocky a stack in this game to go along with Luis Castillo?
You should be able to. I mean, it just depends where you start, right? I mean, obviously Blackmon and Story are super priced up, and DraftKings did a great job of doing it. But at the same time, like, I really like this. I mean, the Rockies obviously going up against the Padres, but the Padres are projected to be the higher owned team here. I like going to the Rockies here a lot, and you should be able to get them in with Castillo. I mean, Castillo's 8K on DraftKings. You obviously might have to go with another value pitcher, but there's options. We can talk about that. I mean, Dallas Keuchel is a guy I think is super viable here, but I like getting in Blackmon. I really like Trevor Story. So those would be the two guys I would target for sure. And then, even a guy like Daniel Murphy, who, again, can at least go off for big games. I mean, I definitely don't mind that. He's only 4,200 in the 5 spot. So, I mean, you can get like a 3 or 4 man stack. It might not be a stack where you try and get 5 people in, but and maybe you just go with the power hitters and then stack around them. But I definitely like the spot better for the Colorado hitters than the Padres. You got John Gray, who's a really good pitcher in Coors Field, or at least he has been over his career. And again, if I'm going to get lower ownership on the Rockies here, I definitely like going with their power hitters. So Trevor Story there for me is a definite target.
Yeah, I was looking at the article up on MLB.com earlier today about the Padres, kind of mentioning about one of the surprises early on in this slate, a plus 18 run differential, 5-2 on the year. Obviously you look at Tatis on DraftKings at 6,000. Are you going to pay up?
Again, like I don't think so, because I'd rather get the lower ownership. I mean, Tatis is projected on Awesemo to be one of the highest owned batters in this slate, which, again, I mean, you're going to have to pay up to get a piece of this game and a piece of some of the other big games too. But I'm okay fading that. And again, there's just so many other good spots. Normally it feels like Coors is a must play or some of these stacks, especially if you're doing like multiple lineups. But I mean, we have implied run totals that are bigger than Coors on this field, right? I mean, like the Yankees, I believe, still have the highest implied team total on this slate. You've got games, like the White Sox and Royals are at 10. The Mets and Braves are another one we'll probably talk about a little bit. Tampa Bay is in a really good spot. So I'm not, again, if I'm making 50 lineups or something like that, I'm going to get some exposure to San Diego. But I actually think they're a pretty good fade candidate, just because you can go to the other side, get lower ownership, and you can go to other games with a little bit of ownership as well. So Tatis they're all fine. It's a great spot. It's just, the pitching matchup maybe isn't as good as it looks like on paper with Gray. And it's enough to make me think that, I'd just rather go otherwhere and get lower ownership. So
Of course, when you hear us talking about all these great projections and tools we have over at Awesemo.com, we do have a great offer going on right now that does expire here on August the 3rd as MLB is back. A lot of sports, NBA is back, and we are giving you your first month of Awesemo Plus half off when you use the promo code RESTART at checkout. That's only $45 for a month of Awesemo's leading DFS projections, tools, and content for NBA, MLB, PGA, and more. Celebrate the return of sports with this great deal. You won't find a better value anywhere else. As I mentioned, this offer is valid through August the 3rd. Of course, we are sponsored by SuperDraft, and the future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offers contests for NBA, MLB, PGA, NASCAR, and MMA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft today using promo code AWESEMO10, and it's $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more and $20 total free on your first deposit of $100 or more. Download the App Store or play at superdraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits. More winning. I will tell you, as since I do all the MMA content over here on the Awesemo YouTube channel, we do have free premium content up at Awesemo.com, the MMA Top Fighter tool. You definitely want to take advantage of that. Mets and Braves. Newcomb going for the Braves, and Mets going to have Porcello on the mound. I've watched the Braves the past couple of days as I'm a Rays fan, so been primarily watching that team a lot. Freddie Freeman started kind of, launched some balls out of the park the other night. But what's your take on this one?
I mean, part of me is really, the sick part of me is kind of interested in rostering Rick Porcello tonight and just thinking we get like some kind of bounce back game. But again, that's not like a suggestion or anything. He is 7K though. And again, this is one of those nights. Like you want to be contrarian with Castillo in your lineup, stack him with another cheap. There's two ways you can be contrarian a pitcher tonight. You go double expensive with like Minor and like Yu Darvish, or you go really cheap. And I mean, that's going to be a guy like Rick Porcello is going to have like no ownership. And again, it's not like I like it, but he's still a pitcher who's capable of like a solid game here or there. As far as the matchup goes though, yeah, it's probably a little bit too thin to really think about. I mean, the Brave stack is definitely, even with me being thinking about Porcello, it's still like one I'd want to target. I really like Ozuna here for sure. You can stack him with Freddie Freeman, obviously, but Ozuna is definitely in just a really good spot here. He lines up well against Porcello just in terms of matchups. So Braves is one of those stacks too. If you go back to the ownerships on Awesemo, which let's see if I can pull it up here, but. They're going to be suppressed just because of the amount of other big names here with the Yankees and Coors Field going on tonight. So I think the Braves are in a pretty good spot here as far as if you want to get off the big names for sure.
Yeah, I know Terry had in his piece today, he mentioned about the Braves going with a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stack with the Braves here with Acuna, Swanson, Freeman, Ozuna, and Adams.
Yeah, the Braves aren't a team I would go past that. Like I wouldn't be looking to get too crazy with them. I mean, if you're going with the Braves as a stack, you're going with their top 5 because they're not going to be super highly owned just because of the slate. I mean, they're going to garner some ownership, but the guys in their back end aren't that great either. I guess Denard at catcher isn't a horrible idea. He's 4,300. That's a little expensive though. Actually, there's better options. So.
I know we've mentioned a lot about Castillo, 8,000 on DK, and taking on Tigers here in Turnbull at 8,100. The Reds. I guess since we talked so much about the pitching in this matchup, how about the hitting?
Yeah, the Reds are kind of up there with the Braves in terms of another stack you can target. I mean, this is a really good matchup for them. Obviously, the Reds are pretty heavy favorites here. Minus 145 versus the Tigers. The thing that scares me off the Reds a bit is Turnbull isn't what you call like a gas can. Like he doesn't serve up a ton of home runs. He's pretty good at least keeping it in the park. And it's like he's not a great pitcher, but at the same time, I don't know what the obviously for upside here, we're talking about stacks. You need the home runs. You need you need everything, obviously. So I think that on this slate specifically, I would be okay going off here. I mean, I think the one guy that really sort of caught my eye was Moustakas at 3,600. He started the season really well. Obviously, it's a lefty-righty matchup. I mean, Moustakas is a guy who you really need against the righties. So he at 3,600 really sticks out. And again, maybe just as like a lineup filler, again, you hit him and then you stack elsewhere. I think he makes a lot of sense. But going down the lineup, I mean, the other interesting thing you could do here, actually, I forgot about this. This was Tucker Barnhart is actually a pretty good punt play at catcher tonight. I think Awesemo had him on his cheat sheet as well. I think we got him up there. One interesting thing you could do, and again, this is because you got to get a little creative to fit in like the Rockies and stuff like that. I mean, he's obviously batting ninth, but then you could go to another really good value in this game, who is Akiyama. Obviously, they got him Shogu batting first. He's only 2,500. That is a really cheap stack. And then batting second as well. I think you could even go to who is batting second? I mean, yeah, so you could even throw in Votto if you wanted to make it a 3-man. But I mean, Galvis is batting 8. Again, these are ways that let you fit in the Coors, the Yankees. You go with like a Galvis, Tucker Barnhart, Shogu stack. All these guys are under 3K. But you got the correlation. You got 8, 9, and 1, right? So again, it's a more of a GPP thing. But if you're paying up for pitching, I don't mind that because you're still getting this really good matchup. You don't have to pay for the power hitters, and that's kind of one interesting thing I kind of liked about this game. So because and the only reason I bring it up is because Barnhart, if I'm punting catcher, I'm probably going to go there tonight. So.
We mentioned about high-price pitching, and we haven't talked about Blake Snell yet. He's obviously 10-8 on DraftKings, taking on the Orioles here. Cobb on the mound for Orioles. If you're looking for a value play, like $4,000 on DK, there's definitely value there. But I can just tell you this: as living here in Tampa, I think the expectations for the Rays is very high.
Right? Yeah. No. I mean, as it should be. I mean, this is I really like this setup. I mean, I think I'm not going to be the only one, obviously, but you got Choi back leading off tonight. I know actually Terry, and this is an article you guys can go read on Awesemo. He had his home run predictions and the tool he uses for it. And Choi was I believe he was at the top of the list tonight. So it was kind of his home run prediction, and I was. This is a spot I've been watching just all day because Troy has been out a couple games, but he's in there. So you can start with him. You can get low in there. 1, 2, 3, 4. I really like, and even then you can go with Renfrew. The righty the righty lefty matchup, which you want Hunter Renfrew in. So I really like this spot for Tampa Bay. I would almost say they're my top. They're my top stack outside of just if I had like free reign and I could just stack all the Colorado dudes, obviously. But Lowe coming off a bit of a slow game and Choi though not playing. I don't think their ownership is going to get up that much either. So I really like the spot.
Yeah, I know the one guy they're talking about here in Tampa is kind of when is he going to break out of the slump is Diaz. And he's in a hasn't got the bat going early on. Yeah. That's going to mean he's only batting 111 on the season. So that could be a guy that at some point you would expect that he's going to turn that thing around. Anything Baltimore wise in the game interest you?
Oh, I mean, it's a really good hitter. It's a good hitter's ballpark, right? So. You could give some credence here, and I don't want to just throw off all the teams that I don't like, but at the same time, again on this slate, other than just taking a shot with like a cheap stack because just to try and get in some more Coors love or something like that, I think I'm pretty much okay. It's you got to give a little bit of credit up there to Blake Snell, even though he's kind of overpriced, obviously, on this slate. So I'd probably just say no. I don't. Nothing really interests me too much in the Baltimore side.
You mentioned about Dallas Keuchel a little earlier here on the show, pitching for the White Sox today. They've got the Royals. Terry mentioned about the White Sox as potential stacks. He put up a stack for FanDuel and a stack for DraftKings. The FanDuel stack 3, 4, 5, 6. DraftKings 2, 3, 4, 6, 7.
Yeah, and this is the other one that I kind of like. And this is just kind of if you're looking to get off the really good stacks, obviously with the spot that the Yankees are in. I think the White Sox are really interesting. You got a guy in Bulbeck series, excuse me, in Kansas City who's just obviously been called up. He's a pretty hard throwing like minor league pitcher. I think he actually led the minor leagues in strikeouts last year. Obviously a hard throwing lefty, but he's still lefty. He's still making a really big jump up, obviously in skill level. And you have guys like Anderson and Abreu here, just in monster spots. I mean, Abreu obviously smashes lefties. He's like one of my favorite plays on the slate at only 4,200. I think this is a really good spot for him, but you can go up and down this the White Sox lineup if you want, and obviously Terry liked that idea as well. So Abreu definitely one of my favorite plays just from a pure price perspective. But this is a good spot to stack, and I would probably say just going like 1 through 5, 1 through 4. I mean, obviously you got Anderson in there. I really like at 4K leading off, but Moncado. All of these guys, Grandal, and Grandal would be for sure. I would want to get in there as well at catcher. I think if you're paying up at catcher, that's a good spot too. So White Sox definitely would be high on my list. Again, their power hitter is going to cost you like $1,000 less here, going up against the lefty pitcher who, I think the most likely scenario is you see him strike out a couple guys, you see him walk a few too though, and it probably sets the table for guys like Abreu and Grandal at some point to really go off. So I really like the White Sox tonight for sure.
At the start of the show, we talked about Clevenger going for the Indians up against the Twins. Here's a little stat for you on the Indians rotation this year. 67 strikeouts, 3 walks.
Yeah. So, I mean, pretty good, obviously, right? This is part of the reason why I like Clevenger so much. Obviously, the Twins, it's really not that bad a matchup for them. So for Clevenger, I should say. So I think that all things considered, I would just pay up for Clevenger in the spot. And I think hitting wise, Ramirez has started off really well. He's only 4,600. It's not necessarily a game I'm looking to stack, but again, I kind of want to get a piece of Ramirez as well. So what am I doing here? There we go. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, hitting-wise, Lindor, I mean, this is – you have so much to choose from. I mean, we're talking about guys like Lindor and Ramirez here as kind of, the off players here because no one's going to be heavily owned them. So this is a spot you can go to, get lower ownership. Obviously, if you like the pitchers, I mean, you expect that the Cleveland is going to win this game. So all things considered, I don't really have any interest in paying up for anyone on Minnesota, even though there's obviously some bigger bats there. But I think this is a really good spot for Clevenger. I think he should be racking up a big night. And I think the main hitter on Cleveland I'm looking at it is Jose Ramirez. So who's obviously looking like he's bouncing back a little bit off after a bad off year. And this should be a really good, from pitching perspective, a pretty good matchup for him as well. So,
yeah, I think the question is I'm sure a lot of people are having this question is Clevenger's ownership. Is it going to be a little lower than we expect?
I think it actually is because again, most people know that people are thinking about going Castillo and Clevenger as like the main spots here. And Castillo obviously is kind of, he's closer to the must play, like I said off the start, right? Because of his salary. So Clevenger for me is even projecting wise, it looks like his projections are actually down. You've got Darvish up there, only cost you $500 to get up to who's got, quite frankly, he's got a better matchup, right? I mean, the Pittsburgh Pirates with Darvish, I just feel like Clevenger obviously started the season well. He's just so hit or miss. I mean, he can go off against the best hitting team in the world, or he can suck it up against really bad teams, right? So I think you'll likely see a bounce back from Darvish tonight, but I still feel better about Clevenger, and his ownership is going to be quite a bit lower. So
Speaking of the Cubs game with Darvish, 10,500 DK, Williams going for the Pirates. I guess let's talk about the Pirates here. Obviously, you mentioned about Darvish there a second ago, but is there anyone that sticks out to you above anybody else on that lineup?
Not really. This isn't one, like the Pirate side is just not something I'm super interested in here. I mean, I guess if you were going to go, if you're looking for, again, kind of like a cheaper stack to get some exposure to, it's pretty easy to get up to guys like, go up to Polanco there and fit him in. But realistically, it's the other side of this game that I think has a lot more, because even to get exposure, like then you're gonna have to pay up for to get a stack. A Pittsburgh side, you're gonna pay up $4,700 for Josh Bell, against you, Darvish. I don't really want to do that. So I think it's the other side of this game again. I think the Cubs are super interesting, obviously, and this is kind of, I mean, going up against Trevor Williams, who's not very good. This is one matchup that I think people are kind of overlooking. I mean, the left-handed bats of the Chicago Cubs here are in monster spots. I really like Kyle Schwarber. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I was doing like a 1 home run prediction, it'd probably be between like Schwarber and Abreu tonight. I mean, it's a really, really good spot for him. And then you've got a catcher there in Caratini. I think he might be DHing tonight, but he's hitting in the 7th spot. Really like that for value at catching. Again, if you don't want to go all the way down to punt, I would really look at him. He's really hit left-handed pitching as well. Or sorry, right-handed pitching, excuse me. As well. So I like that. I like Rizzo. I think the Cubs, I know I've said about 3 stacks that I kind of like, but we're talking about ways to get off and be a little bit less contrarian here. I think of the 3, like the White Sox, the Rays for sure. I think the Cubs will be lower owned than the Rays. So definitely, like at the very least, you can pick and choose here, and you don't have to stack all these teams. Obviously, Schwarber at 400. Caratini at 3,100 is definitely someone I really like as just a value bat. So
you got the Astros and the Angels. Andriese going for the Angels. McCullers going for the Astros. Of course, the big news with this one, no Mike Trout, paternity leave, so he's going to be out for a couple of days. And the Astros bats. Obviously, you're going to look at both sides of this equation.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like we should talk about like Lance McCullers a little bit too, because obviously the dude's got a great K rate. He's been a great pitcher whenever he's healthy. Came back and just pitched 6 innings, right? So, going up against like a LA Angels lineup, which the back end was already terrible, and now they've got Trout out. Again, I don't really love it because you feel like you're capping your upside a little bit, and it's not hard to get. You can go down to Castillo, right? That's the argument against Lance McCullers. You can just go down to Castillo. It's so easy. But McCullers, if he has a really efficient game, I mean, again, you get 6 innings from him, you might get like 8 or 9 strikeouts, right? So it's that good a matchup. I don't hate it at all. It's not something I'm like I would force myself to do or anything, but something to think about. And again, maybe it's a way to get like a bit more contrarian with Castillo if you pair him with McCullers, because I feel like most people will be trying to avoid that, maybe going up to like Minor, who should be a little bit higher owned. I still don't think Minor is going to be super, super chalky, but the main thing with the Astros for me is there's a couple really nice spots here. Michael Brantley at 2,800. I'm sure someone in the chat has already brought this up. I mean, I don't know what's going on with his price, but he started the season extremely well. His batting cleanup, going up against Andriese. I mean, a right-hand pitcher. This is a great spot. I mean, as far as value plays, he's got to be at the absolute top of your list. I don't even really care about ownership with Brantley, quite frankly, at that price. I'm all over that. And then Bregman as well. I mean, again, was another player that was kind of highly projecting pretty highly for Awesemo on our projections, obviously, today. So really like that. They can be kind of like a mini stack. It doesn't cost you anything. Again, you can look, it's the Astros. I mean, you can stack this game if you want. It's not a big deal, but just for cheapness purposes, or just for to get a small piece of it, it doesn't cost you much to do that. You can even go down to like add in Guerrero, who's batting 5th as well. So
Yeah, just looking at our ownership projections tonight, and Lance McCullers 18%.
Yeah, and again, I mean, he's up there a little bit, but he's not going to be like the uber chalk. So I guess people are a little bit more on it than I think, which is fine. But it's hard for me to, even with the possibility that he's still kind of just like being eased in a little bit. It's hard for me to talk anyone out of it because the matchup is so insanely good right there.
Yeah. We got, you mentioned about Minor for going for the Rangers up against the Giants and Webb. You mentioned about why you like Minor in this spot. How about the bats in this one?
This is probably more of a spot I'm just okay. I mean, obviously we've talked about like a bunch of places I like. I mean, I'm okay getting away from pretty much everything here. I guess you could think about the Texas lineup a little bit. I guess like Andreas is pretty cheap to get in at shortstop if you need someone there. He's been playing okay. Gallo maybe for like a bomb, but realistically speaking, I'm pretty much just off this game altogether, especially for bats. I mean, there's just too many other good spots. The matchup maybe for Texas is pretty solid. I mean, Webb coming off like a 70 pitch performance. Yeah, he pitched okay. It's still a really good matchup for the Texas bats, but it's not a good ballpark. You've got you just got the ballpark. You've got everything working against you on a night where I think there's better places to find value. And quite frankly, we're getting good value from guys like Brantley, Cincinnati. I already brought up. There's a couple other spots as well. So I don't really feel the need here to like attack a bad ballpark, even though the pitching matchup is pretty solid for Texas. I guess if you want to go, you want to try, a bit of an uber contrarian, maybe a 3 or 4 man stack and then stack the rest with Yankees or the Coolers. That makes a little bit of sense, but realistically, my main target here is Minor, and that's kind of where I'm leaving this game. Good K rate for him. Started off really well, which you like to see. I mean, obviously 98 pitches in his first game. I think even though he wasn't super efficient, that's a good sign that he was allowed to go out there and throw 98 pitches. And now he's getting, obviously San Francisco, bit of a weaker team in terms of just pure power and stuff like that. So I like going up to him. Again, if he's going to be lower owned than McCullers, that's great for me. I think you could even pair those two to get a little bit of a contrarian 2-man stack with pitching. But I think, again, if you're thinking about fading Castillo, the Minor is a guy, at least in GPPs, which should have good upside tonight. Good matchup. And again, he's been stretched out a little bit, so you like that.
Of course, we're here for the next 20 minutes, and then Emac and Chris are going to take over to talk NBA as the final 2 games of the slate tonight. We got 2 more games we haven't talked about yet here. Let's talk about the A's and the Mariners.
Yeah, A's are kind of interesting. I mean, they've had some bats that are ice cold here. I mean, actually, like Chris Davis doesn't even look like he's in the lineup today, so that makes sense because he's been so terrible. He was obviously, you expect a guy like Chris Davis to eventually get going, but the fact he's not out there is probably makes life easier. Because I mean, again, how many days in a row can you chase a Chris Davis bomb without going insane yourself? So don't have to do that tonight, which is good. The matchup here is good though for the A's. I mean, this is another stack you can kind of think about. I think the A's will get up there a little bit in ownership. Walker is a dude who's coming back, didn't really look like that great. His first outing, obviously, and it's just a good matchup. So, as far as, I'm just going to bring up Terry's article here really quickly because he did a good job on the A's, and I don't want to miss anything. Give me 1 sec here, guys. Yeah, so I mean, he was recommending a 2 through 7 spot. Obviously, he was thinking about Chris Davis. This would be a good spot for him, but realistically, it's guys like Chapman, Seaman, Piscotty. So you can think about kind of the one reason why the A's are nice in this spot is you can kind of think about them 1 through 7, 1 through 8 even. So this is another spot where you might be able to get a little bit of cheap value with a guy like Piscotty down at the bottom. I don't mind that. It'll also make your stacking a little bit more contrarian. Grossman down there at 6. in the 6th spot at 3,100. So this is another place where, again, if you're thinking about trying to find some value bats or value stack to fit in your Coors and things like that, should be a good one. But if I'm taking one bat from here, it's probably just going to be Chapman, a guy who has looked like he's starting to get going a little bit. Home run in his last game, but he's had hits in 3 straight games now. He would be the one bat I definitely really would want to target here. Obviously coming off a really good year. It looked like a little bit slow to get going his first 3 games, but now he's picked it up. So Matt Chapman for me would be the main target here against Walker. And the A's are a pretty solid stack, and they are going to be, again, not uber chalk, but they should be a little bit owned just because they're cheaper. So people for paying up for pitching, obviously going to be gravitating towards that.
Then our final game of the night is the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks. You got Gallen and Gosselin going for the Dodgers.
Yeah. So, I mean, are the Diamondbacks eventually going to get one here? I don't know, man. I mean, it's such domination, right? Gallen. I mean, I want to make some kind of argument here where you could go as like a contrarian play. He didn't look terrible his last time out. He struggled with his command a little bit, but he was still pretty hard to hit. Like he only gave up 2 hits. 8,700 again. I brought up Porcello as being like a bit of a sick play. I feel like Gallen is maybe even a little bit better. I just feel like there's a little bit more upside there. So I don't mind that. Again, we want to think about upside, obviously. And I don't mind taking a shot with pitchers in some of these situations, with quality pitchers, guys who at least, when they're on, they can bring it against good teams. So, again, he doesn't grade out as anything like a top player or anything like that. But you want to get a little bit contrarian on this slate. You want to think about ways you can mix and match with Castillo. I don't know. I feel like, again, I don't want to say they're due. That's obviously like a bad logic, but Gallen is, I feel like Gallen is a pitcher who can come out and at least, beat the Dodgers for one night. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I feel like that could be at least one scenario to think about. As far as bats though, I mean, I will say this, if you do roster Gallen and you do, go with that play in the big underdog, I mean, Marte is Starling Marte is actually in a pretty good spot. I definitely don't mind him as a contrarian bat either. I don't feel like many people are going to be going there. He's gotten off to a good start. You can go with a small Diamondback stat to pair with him. So it's not, it's a little bit of a crazy thing, but maybe you don't need to get that contrarian on the slate. I don't really think you do. I think from a Diamondback perspective, he is probably the pitcher is probably the most intriguing part of this game for me from their side. And again, I'm not saying I'm overly intrigued. It's just an idea where you could pair him with Castillo and you could get a pretty nice 2-man price wise.
Before we get into the questions here in the chat, just pulling up our top stacks. Let's rank the top 5 that we have here. Let me see how you would rank them. Right now, we've got Oakland, San Diego, the Yanks, the Astros, and the Rockies.
So I would probably put Tampa Bay at 1 for me. I mean, I agree with the Padres. They're kind of going to be more of a fade for me. Again, it's a high variance play, but it's hard for me to say, the Padres aren't a good stack tonight because obviously they've been smashing the ball. They're in Coors, so I can't fault putting them 2 at all. And then it gets kind of a lot closer for me. Who did he have ranked 3, 4, and 5?
It went 1 Oakland, 2 San Diego, 3 the Yanks, 4 the Astros, right. 5 the Rockies.
Right. So, Yankees obviously in there at 3 again, pretty obvious. I would probably throw the Rockies in there at 4. And then, I think the A's call is fine. I would maybe throw in the White Sox there. I would probably even just lean White Sox. I just feel like with Abreu in the spot that they're in, I would probably lean White Sox over the A's. But again, it really feels like a night where it's hard to go wrong because some of these teams are in really good spots. So Definitely don't mind the White Sox. And I would throw. I don't know. Again, maybe I would throw the Cubs in there because the Cubs, I feel like it's more you can just target their power left-handed bats rather than have to stack the whole team. But A's and White Sox would kind of be like tied for fifth for me.
Of course, this is MLB Live Before Lock. Coming up here in less than 15 minutes will be NBA Live Before Lock. Of course, we are sponsored by SuperDraft. The future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and a load of line of freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offers contests for NBA, MLB, PGA, NASCAR, and MMA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft today using the promo code Awesemo10, and it's $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more, $20 total free on your first deposit of $100 or more. Download in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits, more winning. Of course, we all know sports are back, and we are giving you your first month of Awesemo Plus half off when you use the promo code RESTART at checkout. That's only $45 for a month of Awesemo's leading DFS projections, tools, and content for NBA, MLB, PGA, and more. Celebrate the return of sports with this great deal. You won't find a better value anywhere else. This offer is valid through August 3rd. Make sure to use that promo code RESTART at checkout. As we get the last 10 minutes or so of the show here, let's get to some listener questions there in the YouTube chat. Acuna and Minor or McCullers and Ozuna?
Acuna and Minor or McCullers and Ozuna. I would definitely go with the first one, Minor and Acuna.
RGM asked about thoughts on Tampa stack. I think you've pretty much made it well known. That's your favorite one today.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll just hit on a couple things. I think getting Renfroe in there is a good idea against in this spot. I just think it's a good idea to maybe, again, if you're thinking like a fifth man with him, I would probably go Renfroe. Although you kind of brought up a good point with Diaz. Like, I know he hasn't gotten going, but it does feel like eventually. So I don't know, maybe you get all of them in there. But I think Troy is definitely a good starting off point. 1 through 5, 1 through 6, whatever you decide to do, I like it for sure.
So someone mentioned about the Rays, but also the Braves for a DK stack says can't make up his mind.
Rays or Braves? Is that what he's debating? Yeah. For a stack, I would lean Rays. Although again, the Braves are probably another team we could discuss. More if we wanted to. I know I brought up the Porcello idea, but realistically, dude is a great target for your hitters. So Freddie Freeman could absolutely go nuts tonight. That wouldn't shock me at all. Acuna, obviously. Coming off a couple of bad games, quite frankly. He hasn't really done anything, but eventually that'll get going as well. So, but yeah, if I'm choosing, I would go Rays.
Be sure to hit that thumbs up button here on YouTube. Let's get those likes up here before we get out of here. This is a question for Cash. Minor or McCullers?
Yeah, for Cash game, I would go McCullers. It's just such a good matchup. Again, even if you get a little bit of a limited Lance McCullers here, I feel like the strikeout potential is so high, and there's just not going to be much to hurt you with. Now the Trout is gone, and it's already a weak back end of the lineup. So again, not that I don't like Minor, but I think Minor probably fits in better as a GPP play for sure. Again, it's just the way the slate breaks down. So you also save a tiny bit, or at least on DK you do with McCullers.
People are talking about obviously that Rays stack. I guess really the question's got to be is which ones in those Rays lineup. Hunter Renfroe went off the other day. He had a tremendous day. I mentioned about Diaz. At some point, he's going to come around. The question is just when is it going to come around?
It could easily be tonight. It's the matchup obviously against Cobb is tasty enough that it's a spot when anyone can get going, obviously. So, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No. Just someone saying in the chat, apparently clouds and storms in Denver tonight.
Oh, clouds and storms. Oh, yeah. I mean, again, obviously we've been doing the show. I don't have the weather up to date on me, but I didn't know that. I didn't see any weather. I thought actually Baltimore was the place. Yeah, definitely something to take a look at. I mean, if that would change a lot, obviously. So
Donovan had asked for cash. Webb or Keuchel?
Webb or Keuchel?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, for me, it would be Keuchel for sure. Yeah, I haven't really. I mean, obviously, as we talked about that game, I haven't really considered Logan Webb too much tonight. Although, again, if you're paying down in that area, he's definitely not like the worst option. I mean, definitely better than Trevor Williams. So I guess I give a little bit of a shout out to Logan Webb, but it would be Keuchel for me. Again, it's a really good matchup for the White Sox bats. So I feel like at the very least you're going to get a really good shot for a W there from Keuchel. He went over five innings. I know he can be a bit of a low K pitcher, obviously, but 73 pitches his first time out against the KC lineup. Yeah, no, it would be Keuchel for me if he can get up there. And I think on this slate, realistically, that should be fairly easy to do.
I'm not sure if anyone's really asked the question, but just kind of looking at ownership, Blake Snell, I mean, yeah, you got to pay up for him, but we're projecting his ownership pretty darn low.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of considered that off the start as well. At the same time, like, I mean, I don't know. He's slated to work 3 or 4 innings max. Like, I mean, it's just, it handcuffs you so much on a slate where you need to get as many bats in as possible. I would just not do it. It's a pretty hard no, to be honest. I just don't know. I mean, again, even if you go with like the lower owned stacks, which can be often on a slate like this where everyone's gravitating towards like 5 teams, say you go with like the Rangers or something like that. Blake Snell is still probably only going to throw 4 innings. Like, his upside is so limited. It's just a hard no, quite frankly. So.
Yeah, especially I think on FanDuel we have his ownership at 3%.
Yeah, it's really low on DK. I think it's even lower actually.
Yeah, DK 3%, FanDuel 0.4.
Oh, okay. So, all right.
Really, that would be extremely contrarian if you wanted to go that way.
It's an odd situation. I mean, I saw him up there, and I figured he was going to be low, but I've never really seen a pitcher on an MLB slate like the most expensive pitcher always garners some ownership, and I've never seen one projected this low. Obviously, we're dealing with like things we've never dealt with before, though. So.
Look, when it comes to the Rays, being a Rays fan, none of this surprised me with them. You never know what to expect.
Oh yeah, for sure, that's true. I mean,
there's going back to the Joe Madden days. You never knew what those guys might do.
Maybe they'll just leave him out there for like 9 innings. Who knows?
Watch, he goes out there and just puts like 12 strikeouts on the board, and everyone wished they would have took him. But yeah. Captain Jenks said, figure out which pitcher will actually stay in the game is the key now. The Yankees, these pitchers so fast. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing with this short season, and with obviously these guys not being around their teams, is just how long will these managers stick with their starters?
I mean, obviously we're getting into the second start, like for a lot of these pitchers, like multiple starts now. So like you're going to see them get drawn out, because the teams, the faster they can get through this, I mean, the more advantage they're going to have. Like, we're talking about a 60-game season. So in my opinion, like the smart managers are going to take a little bit of risk here and try and get these guys a few more innings. But that's why, it's so important. I mean, we're talking about pitchers. It's kind of why a guy like Montgomery, who's like a big favorite, I mean, it's just, he's scary tonight. I mean, I don't even think he's necessarily worth talking about. So It also, is why I think about players like a Gallen who's already had one, who actually looked okay, who's already had a start and actually looked okay in his first start, because that needs to be weighed a little bit more, right? So, yeah, I mean, part of the game, a huge part of the game right now is just figuring out who's doing what and where they are in their kind of season long, getting ready for the season essentially. So.
Yeah, I mean, some people are talking about in the chat about Greg going for the Rockies against that Padres lineup. Obviously the Padres, we mentioned earlier on how well that lineup has done this year. I mean, is that a guy that all obviously we're gonna have lineups all across the board, but is that someone that you're kind of looking at as maybe a guy who could have small ownership?
Small ownership for sure. I mean, going up against the Padres in Coors Field. And John Gray is, again, this is why I'm not as high on the Padres, probably as most people are tonight. I know from just a pure matchup perspective and the Padres lineup, it's a good spot, but Gray is a pitcher who's excelled as much as a pitcher can in Coors Field over his career, right? So, at 7,500, am I saying you should go there and roster him? Probably not, but he's another player who, at the very least, he's already gotten over 4 innings. He didn't really look that good, but at least he stretched out a little bit. So I don't think you need to get that crazy though. There aren't a ton of this slate is kind of a little bit top heavy as far as pitching goes. Like there's not a ton of value guys maybe under Keuchel Keuchel, that really stick out. I mean, Garrett Richards is a guy who I think some people are a little bit interested in on the other side of this game. But again, he has just played so little baseball. And, I don't know. His first time going to Coors, it scares me a little bit. So I think that was kind of I think people are a little bit more interested in Richards. He's $1,000 cheaper on DraftKings as well. But for me, staying away from both these pitchers is probably just the best call. I think it's a big enough slate that you don't have to necessarily do that. So,
is there a team that we haven't talked about that we should be talking about that maybe there's some good under-owned spots?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like we've hit on most of the major ones. I mean, I saw some people dropping Boston ideas off the start there. I'll admit I haven't looked at Boston a whole heck of a lot today, but I mean you've got like a guy like Vasquez who's mashing right now, and again, I mean he's going up against the lefty, a guy who's obviously making his debut. So Boston is probably a spot you could look to get a little bit contrarian. Obviously, that's a really good hitter's ballpark too, so something to consider there. I think that we talked about a few of the spots like Texas and things like that. I think Boston, to me, if you want to get a little bit more contrarian, that's probably where I would go. The Red Sox. I guess if there's one thing we didn't talk about enough, it's maybe just that the Red Sox have an okay matchup here. I mean, against a pitcher who's not going to last too long in most likelihood, and they're in a hitter's ballpark. So,
of course, if you got any questions, just fire those right in the chat. We'll get to you. Someone asked about the Mets. You mentioned about Porcello was someone that maybe you'd look to, but how about their hitters though?
Yeah, the hitters. I mean, I definitely did not spend much time thinking about the hitters. And I think one reason is just, Newcomb. Actually, Newcomb is maybe what we should be talking about from this game that I kind of like. I think if I was going to, Newcomb in his first outing looked really good. And I mean, if he didn't have workload, stuff going on, obviously he'd be pretty good. He's going to be limited again against the Mets, but as far as which side, I think I would probably rather take a shot with him as a very cheap option than risking the Mets bats. It's a pretty good spot though, as far as a hitter's ballpark. So I think that for bats, my favorite still probably under-owned spot is going to be the Cubs. Again, those left-handed bats, really like Schwarber. I think Bryant as well is a guy I didn't really talk about enough, but and Rizzo. I mean, I think the Cubs are probably my favorite under-owned stack. Maybe, and again, we don't even say stack, just under-owned bats going up against Trevor Williams. I think on a slate like this, they just get there's so many other spots, and we've even sort of talked about them all, that they're just getting ignored in perhaps maybe the best matchup of this slate, especially those lefty Cubs bats. So I really like the Cubs bats.
Someone just mentioned John Gray's winning someone a tournament tonight.
John Gray? Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's again, I like fading the Padres. Like just from a strategy perspective, I don't mind that at all. Like I'll live with that. I'll live with the Padres absolutely smashing tonight. They're going to be, they're probably not going to be uber chalky because obviously we have the Yankees on the slate as well. But I don't mind that call. I mean, realistically, if you are thinking of fading them, John Gray makes sense. I mean, he does make sense as a cheap pitcher, and no one's going to be on him, and you can obviously fit him in with one of the more chalky pitchers. So I've already talked up John Gray and his prowess in Coors Field, so I can't really sit here and say it's probably less insane than thinking about Porcello, which I think I've talked myself out of during the show, which is good. So.
Yeah, the more you think about it, the more you start second guessing yourself.
Exactly. I mean, it was just kind of like a little thought to begin with, but Porcello, obviously, maybe he'll just bring back that magic for like one game. But I think I would again. I think I'd probably rather go with John Gray.
I mean, in that kind of same range, you got Dallas Keuchel at 7,300.
Yeah, no, and Keuchel is absolutely fine. I think he's fine. It's a really good matchup, especially for him to get the W. Obviously, a guy who I think you get a little bit of a bump to too, just because he's already gone 5 innings, which you like. He only threw 70 pitches, but that's actually like a lot more than some of the other guys have gone already too. So Keuchel at 7,300 definitely I think should be on your list if you're going to go cheap at pitching, but. Yeah, John Gray, like a guy who can still rack up Ks too as well. So maybe maybe that isn't as crazy as I think.
No, a lot of people in the chat they're looking for your golf picks.
Oh yeah, well those golf picks. Come on, guys, the tournament's already started. I mean, next week.
Yeah. Of course, we got NBA Live Before Lock coming up next. Antonio mentioned stacking the A's and the Reds.
A's and Reds are good. Reds again. I'm looking more at as like a value option actually. That's another spot we could talk about a little bit more, but I think you get good value from the Reds tonight. They're not a stack I would probably want to pay all the way up for, although they really don't cost that much. Like to get Votto in there and Suarez as well, but kind of like the back end of that one, and Moustakas at 3,600. Really good matchup for him.
Of course, coming up next, it's NBA Live Before Lock, as you got to Emac and Chris going to take you up for the rest of the NBA slate for night. Jeff, man, appreciate talking a little MLB with you. I know we're going to be here throughout this short season, so appreciate it, man. And we'll be talking soon. Of course, be sure to check out all the MLB coverage over here at Awesemo.com. So that's going to wrap it up for MLB Live Before Lock for Friday, July 31st.
What is up, guys? We should be starting up live now. Hello. Another show of Live Before Lock. We just had the MLB with Jason Floyd and Geoff Ulrich, and now we're here for some NBA talk for this big 2-game slate, an hour full of talk on 2 games. You know we're going to dig deep, as we always do here. I'm Chris Spags, joined once again, a man I have not seen in a while, a man who really the youthful exuberance that leaps off the screen each time I see him just brings me joy, and hopefully it will for you too. He's your old pal. He's Emac. How you doing, Emac?
I'm doing good. And yes, it is true, Jake, and I do have the largest age disparity of any 2 hosts out there in the DFS world, but that's okay. As I mentioned many a time, there are people at every site that are, well, there's a couple new sites, but every site that are actually older than me. I don't name names. I've always embraced being your old pal, Emac.
Yeah, and you really do. Both the old part and the pal part, both equally. That's the main thing with Emac. You know what? You could be a better friend with all of us at Awesemo if you do yourself a favor and take advantage of the promo code RESTART. You've got about 2 days left to take advantage of it. It will be running out soon. But all the NBA, we've seen games all day today, some games going into overtime right before we were on the air. And of course, MLB, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, everything you need. Esports still going on. League of Legends, all those games still going on, and people are winning money with it every single day. So make sure you take advantage of the promo code RESTART at awesemo.com/join to get half off your first month of Awesemo Plus. And again, you get access to all the data, all the tools, all the ownership projections, all the things you need to have a beautiful, more fulfilling DFS life. So take advantage of it at awesemo.com/join. And of course, it would not be a Live Before Lock show if we weren't presented by our friends over at SuperDraft. Of course, SuperDraft is the future of daily fantasy sports because you really have all the freedom in the world to do what you want with their multiplier format where you can say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to pure lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want to build your own dream team with countless lineup possibilities that let you experience daily fantasy sports the way that you want. So take advantage of the promo code AWESEMO10, AWESEMO10, and get $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more, and get $20 free on your deposit of $100 or more at superdraft.io, or download SuperDraft in the App Store. Do it right now because at SuperDraft, there are no limits, more winning. All right, Emac, we got about 50 minutes before the slate starts. It's been a busy day of NBA. I'll ask you because we got some time to hang out a little.
Sure.
How was your day, your first day back in a full NBA slate going?
Well, I lucked into last night, killed it on DK, gave back a little bit on FanDuel, and then I poured in all my winnings into DK again, not going so well. So the luck box giveth, the luck box taketh away. So it's always tough. But now with these games spread out, it's hard to tell because I do have a fair amount of Luka Doncic, who's still obviously going to be going at 9 o'clock here. And then I have a decent amount of Harden, and I've got one other person in that game, I think a little bit. But some of my early choices did not work out in my favor. Chris Chiozza, that was a disappointment. Vucevic, only 37 fantasy points. Would have been nice to get there. We'll have to see with Antetokounmpo. I've got a fair amount of him, but I've got 44% Doncic coming up, 40% Jakob Poeltl are my 2 big ones, 20% Lonnie Walker, 15% DeRozan. So I'm still feeling okay on these. What we saw last night was kind of interesting in what we've seen thus far today. And this is what we should talk about, Chris. We don't know what's going to happen. This is basketball with variance. We just don't know. And we don't know what the rotations are going to be. Are they going to stretch their legs? Are they not? What do we do? It's the first game back. If anybody tweaks anything, they're going to come out. You know, who kept in shape during the quarantine, who did not, who is recovering from COVID-19, and who is really recovering from it. Did they get a glancing asymptomatic or minor symptom blow, or did they go into the full reaches of it? We just don't know because of HIPAA laws and other reasons why this is personal privacy. So and even the coaches are not going to tell us what they're going to do. Good God, look at the whole Pat Beverly thing from last night. 1 day in already, and we're screwing around.
You know, you're definitely right. And I think there are some concerns. I mean, you know, Ivica Zubac, we saw yesterday, a guy who was in a pretty good spot, had some foul issues, but, you know, did struggle with his conditioning because of contracting COVID. And he didn't play much, you know, in the way of minutes yesterday because of, again, that foul trouble, as well as being limited by not having the lung capacity because the effects hit him a little harder with his conditioning. And Joakim Noah was there, you know, even with an Achilles injury, he looked a little more spry than Zubac, I would say. And, you know, certainly was able to play a comparable amount of minutes, despite the fact that you would think this guy would be out of game shape. So yeah, I think there are some question marks here, and certainly some teams tonight, especially the Spurs, that there are a lot of questions with. So help us out, guys. Hit the like button. It's a late shift here for this Live Before Lock show, and we got a lot to hit on. So your support means a bunch to us to keep this going. And it's actually funny, Emac, that we're doing this stream with 2 games, and then Alex and Adam had to do the one where they probably had untold tens of thousands of dollars on the line earlier. Funny how that works.
Yeah, I had told Adam mentioned, he's like, yeah, Alex and I are going to be up until lock. I hope nothing wonky happens. And I said, well, I'm around because I'm now working from home. So I said, if things go sideways, and he goes, yeah, one of us may have to drop. I'm like, just grab me. I said, I could come in and fill the air for everybody else. But yeah, it's hard to do up till lock. And Alex, goodness, he's kind of almost doing 2 sports because he's got baseball coming in as well. So yes. 6 figures in bankroll going out, and he's on a show with us. So that's the dedication he has to the Awesemo brand.
It's true. And that's why you got to take advantage of those projections and ownership projections, because he's using them just like you do. And you can see, too, the struggle on Alex's brain, the same as you'll see on Emac or mine during this stream, or some of our other more stressful slates. And also just a quick shout out to Karis LeVert for really disappointing me today. I just want to throw that out there. Hurt me inside. Believed in that man with all my heart. But, the Nets are not a good team, and they're going to get blown out. And maybe some cause for concern that could happen again today, Emac, because we have the San Antonio squad very depleted here. You mentioned Jakob Poeltl as a guy you have big exposure to on the main slate. Certainly on the late slate, it's even harder to get away from him. It seems like for the most part, people will be playing one of Jakob Poeltl, or Rashawn Holmes, or Kristaps Porzingis on DraftKings. Obviously on FanDuel, it's going to be even tougher because you can only choose one of them. But it does seem, Emac, like the center position is, to me, a very deciding part of the slate. I honestly don't even know how you get different. Do you want to go to Drew Eubanks in the hopes that Jakob Poeltl gets into foul trouble? Tyler Zeller is also on that Spurs roster, though I think a little bit lower down the depth chart, just as a result of coming onto the team at the end of June instead of being on part of the Spurs for most of the season. And PJ Tucker, Jeff Green. What are you doing at center, Emac? Because for me, it does feel like you just kind of have to take the Poeltl and Holmes chalk. Or if you're not doing that, you probably have to pair one with Porzingis. I guess lineup construction-wise, maybe you can go to just Porzingis if you want to get away from about 45% to 40% of ownership for both Poeltl and Holmes. But how are you feeling about the centers today, Emac, on DraftKings and I guess also on FanDuel?
Yeah, so talking about DraftKings, so I have 40% Poeltl still going. I'm not playing as much on this 2-game slate because I did all the baseball slates, and then they said, hey, can you jump on this show? I said, of course I can. I can't leave Chris out there by himself. So I've read up on everything, and I've been paying attention and all this. So for me, the different things that we have, so we have Jakob Poeltl, as long as this game doesn't go small, which Adam pointed out on the earlier show with Nemanja Bjelica potentially going in at the 5 and the Spurs countering with Rudy Gay, that would be a problem. But I'm still comfortable with Jakob Poeltl where he's at. I feel a double-double is within reason. I played one lineup on FanDuel. He is my center. And then on DraftKings, as I mentioned, I have 40%. I have 30% Rashawn Holmes. I like that as well. So he's played a little bit in the practice games, but they have said he will have no minutes cap. So it's all going to be about the chess game here. No minutes cap? Well, that's great. Is he going to play 20, 25, or 28 minutes? I don't know, but he has no minutes cap. Okay, yay. What are we doing with that? I figure he's a little bit more like cannon fodder than some of the other guys because, Harry Giles, we know his well-documented knee issues. I think he's had 4 reconstructive knee surgeries, multiple on each knee over his career. So this year was the first time he ever went over 24 minutes in an NBA game. And I think he only had 5 times in his college career. So we've seen him do that, but are they really going to push him? Probably not. So for me, up at the top, it's going to be Poeltl. It's going to be Holmes. On FanDuel specific, let me get set up here. Oh, God, there's so many slates going off here. Let me filter this appropriately. We only have 4 choices. So I'm waving off Boban Marjanovic. Mm-hmm. That will probably come back.
And not the matchup for him against Houston. Lots of switching. He can not stay on that
floor. He can't stay out there.
Getting blown out. That he's a prayer.
Yeah, Russell Westbrook literally will out-rebound him because he's going to run twice around him and then get the rebound. So I don't really want that. You mentioned Eubanks, and I don't know what to think about him. I'm already taking my chance on, the guy whose name I just
Keldon
Johnson.
Johnson.
Yikes! So that between that and Jakob Poeltl, no, I've done enough there. And we're playing with DeJounte Murray and White, etc. We have no idea what's going to happen there with Pop. So by default, we're now down to Poeltl and Tucker. So I think you have to have a little bit of PJ Tucker if you're playing multiple lineups, just because if Poeltl dies on the vine, can PJ Tucker get there? We've seen him. Will he stand in the corner and make some threes for us? Maybe, but that doesn't feel great either. If you go look at his recent FanDuel game logs, 17, 20, these are FanDuel points, 17, 23, 11, 30, 16, 12, 13, 12, 34. Those are not enticing at all. If you look at Poeltl, when he's a point per minute guy, it's all coming down to the minutes. So if you are projecting Poeltl for less than 20 to 24 minutes, then you probably don't want to play him. You're better off rolling the dice and avoiding the ownership leverage play. Because as we saw, you either hold hands for first or you get a pittance. Did you see some of those ties yesterday?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I saw the $1 million didn't quite end up $1 million for some people out there, which, not the most fun, but yeah, it's tough on these short slates to get different. And especially, I think there's a little more ways to get different here. If you do go to a Keldon Johnson, if you do go to, even Lonnie Walker, who's going to have some ownership, but it's not maybe as high as it normally would be for a $3,200 guy who's starting, because people know that hasn't always been the best spot. I'm not saying play Lonnie Walker. The point being, there are some ways to get a little different here. Rudy Gay also, we have projected for under 10% ownership. Emac, like you mentioned, he could possibly get those center minutes. So I think there may be some ways to not chop this one up a million different ways for this slate. But that said, it is a 2-gamer, so won't shock me either. Let's talk about some of these other cheap guys on San Antonio Emac, because we've kind of talked around them. Talked about Keldon Johnson, a guy showed some flashes before the break, and now I think the fact that there's no Patty Mills in the lineup tonight, no Bryn Forbes, both those guys out. I don't actually know why Mills was out, but Forbes has a leg issue, which is it's going to happen. It's going to happen a lot with these guys over the next few days. Guys getting back in action, their bodies not fully being there. But I do think we can see decent minutes out of Walker. Derek White, too, a very weird price point. Don't want to pay it at all, but I could see him being useful. And again, Keldon Johnson, minimum price, did light up in one scrimmage on a per minute basis. He looks good. The question is, can he get to the minutes? But he's about a point per minute player in his limited sample size this year. So these are the guys I'm willing to have some of, Emac, but I guess give us your full take, because I know you talked about Drew Eubanks. He's also not very good, though. I guess overall about a point per minute guy with a lot of variance on his court time. If you were to rule these guys out or keep them in, which of them would you say you'll have still in your lineups, and which ones have you taken out entirely?
So just want to say, Patty Mills is just general soreness, and Pop said he's not going to play him tonight. So it is what it is. San Antonio really doesn't have a chance of making the playoffs here. So, let's go see what the young guys are. So it wouldn't shock me, and this is where it gets dangerous, wouldn't shock me to see if he's looking and saying, all right, what do we got for next year? We've got Aldridge out. Let's see what happens with the three guard backcourt, et cetera. So it just gets a little dicey. I don't think you can rule anybody out just because it's a 2-game slate and the ownership is there. But it's like me on FanDuel last night. I literally was the cash line with like 8 different lineups, and one of them cashed and the others were all within like 6 FanDuel points. So it's like I just didn't have the right combination on DK. I shot one up the stratosphere because I had Leonard George, Davis, and Jermichael Green, and at one stretch in the last 3.5 minutes they had 5 of 6 3 throws, 3 of 2 buckets, and they all assisted on each other's buckets. So I went from barely min cashing to turning it into 150x, and then because it was a $1 lineup. But that lineup in the Millie Maker, wait for it, would have still cashed for $150. So even though it was an amazing lineup, and it was like the 7th best lineup you could have possibly had or something. So it's one of those, who knows what's going to happen. Now that we've set the stage for that, are you willing to light money on fire for entertainment, or are you trying to win here? If you're chasing some of the overlay, which is going to happen on the other slates, not really on this one, then that might change your perspective a little bit. But with regards to tonight, you got to treat it like showdown. Okay, there's less choices. Where am I going to be a little bit different? And I think just mixing and matching some of your lineups at a lower dollar buy-in is just going to have some fun. You got 2 great ball games that you can flip back and forth starting at 9:00, where both of them will be on at the same time. So that said, I don't really want to kick anybody out. Boban is one. I'm not really thrilled about Maxi Kleba. In this one, this just doesn't really set up for him with regards to this matchup. Porzingis can play the 5. So, that's where I'm kind of ruling those guys out. If we look at kind of DK power forward here, is Dorian Finney-Smith game time decision? Not really a fan of his, but they're going to need minutes. You're not getting a discount on Robert Covington, 6,100. He'll play 30 minutes. Will he get 15 points or will he get, 38 points, fantasy points? I don't know, but I think he's in the mix. We're about ready to be disappointed by Dan Wellhouse. Can I say it that way for you since we haven't been on the show together?
I swear to God, that's how you pronounce his name. I'm willing to admit maybe some people pronounce it Daniel, but point being, he is. People are already asking about him in the chat, Sparty in the YouTube chat. Yeah. We are paying attention to comments, especially today because we got to fill an hour. So if you got any questions and stuff, drop them in. But Daniel House, he's going to get more minutes today. He still doesn't really get an uptick in usage with the guys who are out. So Eric Gordon even being out doesn't really help House out in a meaningful way. So I'm a little more inclined to get away from House. I mean, I had a fair amount with him. I think I'm still under the field, but probably I'm about 20% ownership with him. He's projected for a shade under 30. And again, if you want those ownership projections yourself, use that promo code RESTART for half off your first month of Awesemo Plus at awesemo.com/join.
Better than Chris Chioza, but does he crack 20 fantasy points? I don't know.
That's the thing. At least Chioza, you had a real argument. Look, I didn't play a lot of Chioza. I just didn't see it, but he was the lead ball handler, even if, that ended up being a lot more Levert. Joe Harris even took a little bit more of the ball than you'd expect. Whereas Daniel House is just going to be out there watching Westbrook, watching Harden, watching even Covington, maybe even watching PJ Tucker. Like, he's clearly, I think, the 5th option, at best the 4th option there. I know he spikes an upside. I know people have won money off of those days, but just for me, I'd rather have less House because honestly, I think our ownership on him might be a bit conservative. I think people see him as the safe value guy. And I feel like he and Lonnie Walker probably pop up. But even wouldn't shock me if House ended up with more ownership than Walker, just because savvy players will remember, like, oh yeah, this has happened with Lonnie Walker and it's been terrible. Whereas House, they might just remember, like, oh yeah, that day where he hit 5 threes, that was awesome. Like, I don't know. I worry about having a lot of House on the slate.
I'd almost rather go to Keldon Johnson just for the unknown and roll the dice. I think he has a better chance. I think House has a better chance of outscoring him. I think Keldon Johnson has a higher ceiling. And that's a silly thing to say, but now we're talking about, 5th guy on a rotation, it's the 5th option when he's on the floor versus I don't think Johnson's going to start, but what is he going to be? About the 8th guy? And who the heck knows what Popovich is going to do. And without that many bigs other than Pirtle, we could see a lot of flexible lineups, but he could still be the odd man out. We don't know, even with Forbes out, even with Mills out. But I kind of think less people will be going that route. And I'm willing to take that chance a little bit more. It does not feel great, but that's what I'm looking at. Another guy that I think if you want to play on DraftKings, you will be alone, but that's the whole point. Tim Hardaway Jr.
Hate that price though.
The price is obnoxious at 6,300. That's just, but that's what everybody's going to say. And we've, if it was a THJ game and, he is the guy that has 40 fantasy point upside. But he is another guy he's behind Doncic. He's behind Kristaps, he's 3rd option, 3.5 option, depending on who's out there. Maybe that's not great. So nothing exciting there. Let's look at some shooting guards here. Seth Curry.
I did put Seth Curry in one lineup.
5,000.
He maybe spikes something, but yeah, I mean that's where we are in this 2-game slate is these guys, and I hate it too because I know some of the guys we've done the show with that Emac and I have done a lot of NBA shows with. Our boy Fast Eddie, who I'm going to probably get in trouble for saying his name, but one thing that he always talks about, which I feel like has always stuck with me, and I appreciate the lessons that he's imparted to us over the years, but just the idea of getting away from that bad chalk and getting away from it and then taking your stabs elsewhere. I think it's something Alex also preaches all the time. A lot of our guys who have done really well with NBA and understand it extremely well. And I think if you can get to Seth Curry at 6%, knowing that he can get hot off the bench, Luka get in foul trouble, there's some ways that this can happen for him. I think if you're playing, especially if you're somehow getting 150 lineups, I think that's something that I would not mind at all, just to be able to, just get different and get some Curry, get some THJ, though I really still not going to have much THJ for me. I actually don't think I got any of him. Did get some Curry, did get some Kleber, actually got some Dorian Finney-Smith, who pops up as decent value relative to Awesemo's projections. I think these Dallas guys, they're going to be completely overlooked, whereas the San Antonio guys, I mean, we covered them. People in chat know these guys. You probably shouldn't know Keldon Johnson, but you do, because that's where San Antonio's at. Whereas Dallas, we know Luka, we know Kristaps. That's all people are going to look at today. They're not looking at Kleber. They're not looking at Curry. JJ Barea, maybe he, I don't know. There's some ways it gets a little bit different for Dallas.
Yeah. The Barea is an interesting one because we know he doesn't really play unless they really need him. Dallas does have stuff to play for. It wouldn't be a shock if he got a DNP. It also wouldn't be a shock if he got 20 minutes off the bench. I don't know what's going to happen. So there's your danger play. And is there anything worse than a slate like this just taking a 0? I mean, raise your hand if you had. Who was our crappy guy last night? Not Royce O'Neal, the other guy, Georges Yang. I think he had 6 shots. He just didn't make any of them. So that was a debacle. But what are we going to do? What are we looking at? So I'm going to do a DK lineup here while we're on air because.
No, that's as you should. And remember, guys, build your lineups now. You have about half hour left to lock, and use that promo code RESTART at awesemo.com/join to get all the data that we all put together that we use for ourselves. Rather, Alex puts it all together. To be clear, don't worry about my incompetency touching the ownership projections. That doesn't happen. But for Alex, he's laboring behind the scenes to give us this data to build things pretty fast. And you can see some efficiencies in guys like Emac, who mentioned Tim Hardaway Jr. We don't like Tim Hardaway Jr. I have gotten killed by Tim Hardaway Jr. on both sides, just not playing him some days, playing him too much when he was a Knick. And, he's going to be under 20% owned, and there just aren't a lot of guys who can do that on today's slate. And actually, that's actually a good question, I think, for us to talk about Emac. And we kind of talk, I think one other thing I want to hit on is which game would you want to game stack a little bit more? Because I think that's an interesting question. But before we get there, if you look at the guys under 20% Emac, which ones do you feel like are worth that stab the most? Because we can sort of talk hypothetically about, a guy like Drew Eubanks being under 10%, or, a Keldon Johnson, who's actually going to be a little higher owned than he should be for what we know of him. Any of these guys really jump out to you as being one you want to lean on tonight to get different?
Just make sure what I uploaded is still recent. Sorry, so this is DK. I'm utilizing some different tools tonight. Okay, so that's not updated. That must be the main slate. All right, so I am going to go back to our little sheet here, and we will go with that. So let's see. So you said less than 20. So let's look at some names here. So I'm throwing out, I don't want Kleber. I'm thinking the game to stack is going to be the Sacramento San Antonio game, because people are not going to be interested in that one. So if we start looking at players in that and just kind of going from the bottom up of the ownership, I think you eliminate anybody that is, I can't go with Giles or Bazemore. Really don't want Jeff Green. Can't roll Barea with my one lineup. Seth Curry. So basically anybody Seth Curry and below, I don't really want. Drew Eubanks, I don't know enough about him. I don't feel good about going with him. Marco Belinelli. What is Belinelli's?
He's definitely one guy who's going to be completely overlooked, but certainly can catch fire in that second unit, and which is going to have some usage to go around with no Patty Mills out there.
Right.
Derek White has historically soaked some up, so maybe that doesn't give Belinelli as much opportunity. But White does assist pretty well. He has a 20% assist rate on the year, which isn't bad for a backup. Maybe Belinelli gets set up. I think, I didn't go there, but I could see why you'd go there. I'm definitely team Keldon out of the minimum price guys.
Yeah, so I'm starting my lineup here with DeJounte Murray, Derek White, Buddy Hield on the other side. I like that 5,200 price point. I'm working out a game stack here on the fly, and I'm trying to go to this game first. So then we got to start thinking, do I really want Rudy Gay? That means I need Jakob Poeltl to probably do poorly. Okay, let's take Rudy Gay. Obviously, we do not have... So Double D is starting. That's a great price point for him, too. What do you think about DeRozan today?
So I am above the field on DeRozan. I don't love it because I genuinely, much like the Nets today, I have some concerns that DeRozan does take big upticks in usage without LaMarcus Aldridge on the floor, does also take a pretty decent jump in assist rate. Those look great. If you look at the numbers, he's got enough of a sample size to make that judgment. But if this game gets out of hand, I think DeRozan's the first guy who gets pulled. And that, like for the reasons you talked about, Emac, where Pop is already kind of popping us early on, where he doesn't seem to care much for making the playoffs or doesn't think the shot of that happening is too high. And if he does go away from DeRozan early, or those 10-minute stints become 7-minute stints early, like you are screwed at his price point, I think. That said, I'm at 45% with him. We have him projected at 37. I like DeRozan if this game stays close, and I think that's sort of the way I'm approaching it, is that I have a little more kings and lineups with DeRozan, and I do think that's the stack. It's like you go Murray, you go DeRozan. Maybe if you don't want to go Murray, you can go to Derek White, but I would personally prefer Murray just because the price difference between these two guys is not that great. Pirtle as well, I think, in the mix for me, but I agree the Sacramento-San Antonio game stack makes the most sense. That said, I think Houston-Dallas has a lower chance of blowing out. I think that one's going to be a real heater.
Right. Right. I'm just playing the ownership here, and we already had one overtime game. Mathematically, it's something like 3.9%. Or somebody else had been throwing this stat around a year or two ago. That 3.9% of the games go into overtime. So something along those lines. Who do you think the best scoring player is going to be for Sacramento? I'm going to go with Hield and Holmes. It's probably Fox in that mix. So let's put Fox in this game as well.
I mean, on a projection basis, it does seem like Fox in Awesemo's projections, he's got the next nearest guy by about 11 points. The value also looks pretty good for him. I did get a little away from Fox because I think he's going to be very obvious for people who don't play Russell Westbrook or maybe move Luka to small forward on DraftKings. But I always like Fox, and certainly if he does well, or if this team does well, it's probably going to come from either him or Bogdan Bogdanovic going off or creating for others in addition to getting their own shot.
What is Bogdan a free agent next year?
He's either a free agent this upcoming summer or the next one. It's coming soon because I think I was reading something about it the other day, but they want to sign him, but it seems unlikely because he thinks he's like a big money guy.
Yeah. So is he playing to show off? That's the question.
I mean, he was playing ahead of Buddy Hield before this whole shutdown happened. And then Hield has picked up a little bit in the scrimmages. He was playing in the high 20s a minute during the scrimmages, though we don't know, scrimmages aren't going to be a perfect one-to-one approximation for everything. I don't mind going to both. My personal preference is going to be Bogdan, especially with the ownership being close. I think Bogdan can do a little more in terms of playmaking, in terms of also siphoning some away from De'Aaron Fox. So I think Bogdan's more appealing to me in lineups where, you are going to have Fox in there. But I honestly, Hield is very much a GPP play for a 2-game slate. He still has a 27% usage rate on the year. He's been getting up 17 shots off the bench in scrimmages. He's going to shoot. It's just a matter of does he get 20 minutes or does he get 28? And, before the break, it was getting a lot closer to 20 minutes.
And it's been forever since I looked at Sports Track. Oh, okay. So yeah, he is a restricted free agent.
There you
next year. So there we go. So they can have a qualifying offer of $10.6 million. I don't think they're going to do that personally.
I mean, I like Bogdan. I think Bogdan's a little more of a big game guy, so maybe he shows. I mean, and this is not a data point. It's just more like
when he's a good player. I just don't think he's consistent. He can do damn near anything. You need a ball handler. You need to score. You need somebody to just do whatever. Yeah, he's your guy. But then he disappears for massive stretches because his usage just isn't quite up there unless the right key people are out. I don't know that the right key people are out. So. Yeah. The front court being dinged up does not help Bogdanovic much.
True. And he's more of a first option on a bad team kind of guy, at least so far, I think, from what we've seen. He'd be a great, terrible version of Luka Doncic, I think, where you build a team around him and he'll probably lose a lot of games, but he'll have really nice stats along the way for what he can do.
All right, Harry Barnes or B. Jelly?
That's what I was going to take you to that. So Harrison Barnes always over projects for me to the point that I have to just ignore the own projection that I created because I don't understand why Harrison Barnes always looks competent. I did play some Harry. I did play a little more Bielitsa. Bielitsa's minutes certainly less secure, but he shoots threes. He can certainly get hot and add that value. And he's going to be he's going to be 0.1% less owned. Bielitsa will be than Barnes. So. Not the biggest difference there, but I I have enough of both. I could say that, Emac. I really did split a bunch of these guys. I got a little Bazemore, I think, in one lineup that was enough for me. Didn't get to the Jabari, didn't get to the Harry Giles tier too much for the reasons that Emac talked about earlier. But if you had to choose, Emac, Bielitsa, Barnes, which of them would you want to do out of the Killer Bees?
I am going with Bojan Bogdanovic, the true Killer Bee. No, I don't have quite enough.
There's like a trick question there. Maybe two options. You went option C.
No. Well, hey, Lonnie Walker fits. Good God, this is a horrible lineup. All right, so I've come up with my matchup here. So let's poke some holes in this because this is what you got to do. We got to play the game out. So I've got for the Spurs, Murray, Johnson, Rudy Gay, and Walker. Okay, so I don't have White and I don't have Pirtle. So I need the game to kind of go small, but I need Lonnie Walker to do something and not disappear. And I need DeJounte Murray, University of Washington, go Huskies. I need him to do something impressive. On the other side, to coming the other way, I've got Buddy Hield and Holmes. So that's interesting that I'm going with Holmes, but not Pirtle, because those two seem like they would match up together. But I do like that price on Holmes. And then I've got Doncic and Harden as the studs on this. So the question becomes, do I want to tweak the center spot? And you're really down to Pirtle, Giles, Holmes, Porzingis, because I'm not playing Boban. So by default, I kind of landed on Holmes. But the argument would be, do I put Pirtle in there and assume those guys are going to stay on the court at the same time? And I think the answer probably is yes. So let's put Pirtle in there. But now
I find it hard to believe Pirtle totally kills you. Like Walker, I think, can kill you. The issue is just that, Walker's target score is very low. Like I have him at he needs 26 points to get where he needs to.
So how healthy do you think Westbrook is?
That's the big question here, because if he cannot be a whirling dervish and if his lungs are tight or whatever, he's going to push through it. But at a certain point, I think they have to probably maybe play him a little less for his own safety. Whereas Harden's in as good of a shape as he's probably ever been. He's to the point where he actually might be a little too small would be one of my concerns, because part of his game is being able to bounce off of guys and pinball around. But earlier in the day, it looked like we were going to have a lot more ownership on Westbrook. And to me, at that point, Harden was like a sure thing play. Now we have it being a negligible difference in ownership. And I think at that point, it's tough to take a stab on a guy just coming off of coronavirus. Like we just don't know, like you talked about earlier. And I would favor Harden for myself, I think, just for the safety and knowing that he's about as good as he's going to get. But like, it's hard. Like if anybody's going to overcome whatever damages of coronavirus, his lungs could be literally all black, and he probably still would just be like a coal miner from the 1800s, and he would still be completely fine and push through it. So I don't know, but I would favor Harden.
All right. So now if I retweak, if I want because there's really no good power forwards. So now I've gone with Barnes, Hield, and Holmes. On the other side, I've got Johnson and Pirtle. I still got Luka and Harden, and I got 5,300. Oh, look at that. Rudy Gay it is. But see, that kind of screws up my whole Rudy Gay. Let's put Rudy, because I want Rudy Gay to play center. But then that causes problems with Pirtle. But it fits better. So that's what I'm going to do.
The thing is, like, I really wonder if you can actually play Gay at center and get away with it, because, Rashawn Holmes is not a beast by any stretch, but he's going to really dominate the inside. And he gets, we need something.
Yeah, we need a reason for him to not be on the floor, for Pirtle to not match. Right. So that's the hard part. But there you go. So I just wanted to talk through a leverage play there, since we still have 20 minutes.
No, and exactly. That's the way, if you're listening to Emac and me sort of like debate these minutia, and you're new to playing NBA for whatever reason, maybe, you've found riches during quarantine. Bless your heart if that's the case. You really do have to think about the either ors and the conditionals of this and the ownership as well. Our CEO, Tom, has made a lot of money off these late slates over the years because of the ability to manipulate ownership and finding when everybody's going one way, then maybe you go to this guy who's, a lower probability outcome, but is going to be, there is an outcome there that can occur. And I think that's definitely a logical way to look at it, Emac, with Pirtle and going to Gay. And I think for me, that's also why I got Drew Eubanks, because I think he might be one of those young guys where now's the time to see what you have with him. I think it might stink, but we'll all find out together tonight when he ruins 10% of my lineups.
Yeah, and so now the other one I'm going to build is not going to have either one of those guys, but I'm still going to stick with this game. So let's see. Who did I end up with? I did not have. So I really want DeJounte Murray. I've got I don't have Murray or White, so let's go with Murray and White. So my thought is Murray at point guard, White at shooting guard, and let's go with, I need a small forward here.
I would also say, just while you're talking about that, I think that's inherently going to be a unique build because people are going to think about the White, Murray, those guys in the regular season, the pre-stop shutdown season, those guys took away from each other. But now we're talking no Forbes. We're also talking no Patty Mills. So I think the chance of them at least, getting to kind of like Ish Smith and Shabazz Napier were today, both guys got to 27 minutes. They played a little bit together because there just weren't the bodies. And I think we could see that with White and Murray today. So I think that's a good tournament play where you're still not losing a lot in your projection.
So how do you feel about Porzingis going against the Rockets? We've seen that matchup twice. He averaged 34 minutes, 53 fantasy points in those two. Feels like he'll be the center more often than not, right?
I would think so, yeah. And he also, in terms of switchability, like we talked about with Boban, where, he can really not play a minute in this game. Otherwise, he's just going to get, crushed. He's going to get killed in the switch over and over again. Porzingis has acquitted himself well in that. And also, can take advantage of the lack of size that these guys have. He's been hitting the boards harder. His usage was also up before the season stopped there because his usage was low at the beginning of the year. Luka got hurt. His usage went up, and then he just kind of kept that usage going forward. But he got to just under 28% usage during that last 2 month stretch before the shutdown. I don't have enough Porzingis tonight. I think I feel like he should be a guy to really get above the field on. And I just kind of rode with the field in a way. I don't know. Because I felt like the Pirtle Holmes little pairing there is too easy on DraftKings. And that actually might be the reason why you go to Porzingis, because it's so easy to look at. And if you go Pirtle and Porzingis, or just avoid Pirtle and Holmes entirely and just go Porzingis, like you could easily have the highest scoring center, and then can also maybe find some guys who are priced similarly to Holmes and Pirtle who can get to where they are.
Here's my second lineup. So this says no Holmes, no Pirtle, but still stacking that first game. So I've got Murray, White, Rudy Gay on the San Antonio side, Bjelica, because I'm like, all right, they're both sides are going to play small. I've got Bogdanovic because he can play no matter what, and I'm going to go with Fox on this one, just because if it's going to be small, maybe an up-tempo game with a lot of guards, I think that's where he can thrive. And then that leaves me enough for Porzingis at center, and then Covington at utility.
Okay. Covington is a guy that I like quite a bit. He's going to be owned, but I feel like he's one of the safer plays on the slate in terms of being able to get somewhere that's on
him or THJ. I've got enough left. I couldn't pull the trigger.
I would favor, okay.
THC?
You play THJ if you have like Harden and Westbrook and no Luka, I think, and maybe you hope that Luka has a congenital heart issue that keeps him out of the game, and then THJ gets the kings to the castle. But yeah, I hate it. I'd rather play Covington every time, but I get it. I get why you might play THJ.
Yeah. So there's ways to go, and I will say this one: if you didn't go to DK and put lineups in for the NFL Sims today, Chris, I don't know what you were doing. No. They're playing for money now.
Oh, are they?
Yes. Like not just the free entry. Like they had a $10,000 contest, $10 entries. Can we really do that? That seems a little weird.
I thought there was a legality thing was why we didn't do it for ours. And of course,
and why wouldn't you do that during the pandemic? Why wait till today to start doing that?
They've been getting so many views. We have a second here, but you guys hopefully checked out our NBA 2K and our Madden Sims, which Emac and I were on a great deal of for the Madden one. I had the pleasure of planning a lot of that one. And we were killing it with our streams, and we did well, but we had other projects that we could do for Awesemo, and at a certain point it just sort of had to come to an end. But DK has continued on, and to their credit, they have made a little brand for themselves for some of these guys where they're getting their followings have increased from it. Their consecutive viewers have increased. So shout out to DK. They had the vision. They stuck with it. That's like one of those content things where you ride out and you keep pushing this content forward. People will eventually like it and go to it.
Yeah, I definitely did not see it ending up in.
We lost the great NFL Sims war, Emac. The civil war of NFL Sims.
We had a valiant turn, but just for those of you wondering, tomorrow there's a 3:00 slate. It's Browns, Chargers, Jaguars, Panthers, the Washington football team, and the Falcons. And there's about $4,000 worth of prize pools available for you.
Well, good for you. Check them out. Honestly, play more tournaments. That's really the one thing Awesemo always preaches, because you're just going to increase your chances of being able to, maybe take one down or whatever. And for me, I've talked about it on a couple of the streams, but MMA was great to me. Jason Floyd, who was on the show right before us, and Pete the Heat, two fantastic hosts who do a great job making sense of all that. And, I loved MMA. I honestly, look, take advantage of this stuff is all I would say. All these things out there, use that restart promo code at awesemo.com/join, because if you understand DFS and you are willing to put in a little work, a little elbow grease to get, data and understanding as well of how these sports work, you can certainly have some nice gains in these other sports. So I would really encourage you. And it's not just me, being a shill. I know that's like the job here for me is to shill a little bit, but I really would swear by that. And PGA this week, it's so much fun. PGA is so much fun. I'll die by PGA every single week. Emac, let's talk through some of this. We got actually one little either or in the chat, which we'll answer right now, because why not? 3-man either or, 3x3 for our boy Matthew Protowell, one of the regulars on the channel, and all the regulars out there who've come back to us after a few months off here for sports. If you've taken that time off, hopefully you stuck with us and watched what we had in the channel. The morning show, great job with Josh, Laffy, and Ben every day. All the other streams we've had, guys like League of Legends, Jeremy over there doing a great job with that, Phil doing the NASCAR stuff. Of course, PGA guys. So shout out to everybody who stuck with us. But if you are coming back here, we do appreciate you too, and we'll take your stupid either ors right now because that's how much we appreciate you. Would you go Harden, Bogdan, and Bazemore, or Westbrook, Holmes, and Buddy? Emac? I think for me, oh boy, the Bazemore drop off is so bad that I think I would go Westbrook, Holmes, and Buddy.
All right. I think you got to go with that first one. I was just reading here. So Harrison Barnes did have COVID. It doesn't say if it was a big, he was enough that he was sick. I don't know how sick. But Bazemore played in the last scrimmage off the bench, and he got hot. But it just points out that he's a guy that can fill it up. Let's see. It said 16 points, 8 boards, and 3 assists, filling in for Barnes, who arrived in Orlando to begin his quarantine period. So that's all the way back from 6 days ago. But just reminding people, again, we don't know for sure how it's going to impact some of these people. How much was in the lungs? What was it? And I don't even make light of this at all, because 158,000 people have died from this. Was it just in the lungs? Was it more of a fever? Was it the dry cough and nothing else? What was it? And we don't know. So that's, everybody recovers differently, and it's not just the flu when it affects some people. So I just want to say that.
And shout out to our boy.
The rest of it you can figure out. I'm not an epidemiologist. So.
Our boy Jordan Klein in the YouTube chat asking us about Jeff Green. While we can see him on camera, he's got the guns out today. Our boy Jordan Klein wearing his finest Under Armour shirt.
Guns out. Woo!
Biceps popping and everything. You guys don't even know what you're missing out on.
Pythons.
But Jeff Green at center, he's one of those guys I could see going to just to get away from all the chalk. I mean, I think if you're going to play PJ Tucker, that's certainly, a more logical play. I would think that means a very small Dallas lineup, though. Honestly, you could put him in there against Porzingis if maybe Porzingis is doing a little too much damage. So, I don't hate to stab at it. He's another guy under 6% projected ownership. Hard to see him really getting there. I certainly don't have him at a great projection, but if you're not playing the other risky guys, I think going to Jeff Green as your dart toss to make your lineup a little different seems logical enough to me.
Yeah, hard pulling the trigger, but is there really a difference between him and, could he have the good game over Danwell House? Potentially. Could he outperform Covington? Maybe. A little tougher there. You need something to happen with Covington in regards to foul, just not finding the bucket, etc. But who says Covington's going to have a good game? What do we say? He's going to get 15 points or he's going to get 38 fantasy points? We don't know on there. So there we go. I mentioned current events, chat. I won't do that. Yeah.
Shout out to our guy Brick75, who's also in the chat. Of course, one of the top DFS players in the world. He's done our On the Contrary show with me and Alex. And honestly, we have a 200-ish viewers in here right now for this late slate. So we appreciate all of you watching, but feel like you're in good company, because if Brick's watching, you are actually with men who are making a lot of money, and women who are making a lot of money in this game of ours. So he points out that it might be state law allowing sports betting and online slots. That would be the reason why I guess those virtual games or the East NFL Sims might be a betting thing. And if anybody knows things, it's Brick. So I'll take his word on that without even thinking about it for one more second. Matthew again asking Bazemore over Tucker. He asks,
that one I think I'd go Bazemore.
Oh man, I would still go Tucker. At least Tucker's going to get you your 30 minutes, whereas Bazemore
0.4 fantasy points per minute. How does that math out against Bazemore?
You're not, but what's Bazemore doing out there? It's not like he's going to be him and he's going to give up shots from Buddy Hield. Is Buddy Hield going to be like, yeah, you take the ball, man? Like,
Bogdanovich. Yeah.
Maybe
the Barnacle of the Bay, baby.
Yeah, maybe if the Barnacle is actually affected by coronavirus, maybe that's it. I was going to make one crack. Like, there's probably nothing Barnes does on a basketball court that like you could probably not have a lung, and you're probably fine playing his game. Hang out in the corner, grab a rebound that bounces to you. That's all you got to do.
Right. And the reason I brought up those sims, they only went off half full this morning. This was the one day I didn't make layups over there. I've made about $300 off the various free rolls during the downtime.
We recommended that. That's a smart move. We couldn't play the FanDuel ones because of our obviously being host of that and running the games. But definitely there were some good ways to build a bankroll during quarantine, which hopefully you took advantage of for all you guys out there, especially when you're trying to build that bankroll initially. Take advantage of the free games that these sites were offering up, and they are still offering them up too. And of course, make sure to take advantage of SuperDraft, superdraft.io. They have slates going all the time as well, and they do offer you that discount or that deposit bonus that is so hard to find now in the DFS space. You can find it at superdraft.io or by downloading SuperDraft on the App Store and use the promo code Awesemo10 to get yourself $10 free on a $10 deposit and $20 free if you deposit $100 or more. So just use that, get that money in your accounts. And also, actually, is there? Trying to see if there's any interesting SuperDraft night slates, but either way, I'll just give you guys some free SuperDraft projections for this. Luka Doncic looks pretty.
There aren't any late slates. They're up for tomorrow, but you can still. They have late swaps. So if you guys jump
I always forget if they have night slates, and I'm not logged into SuperDraft right now, and I forgot my password. So there's my issue for today on this computer in particular. But check it out. So I love SuperDraft, and those guys, Ricky over there, who's they're our main liaison, a fantastic dude, and play on sites that have really good people, and watch shows that have good people. Hopefully, let's see if we got any other questions in the Slack. Nothing too good. People tilting over the Celtics Bucks game. I get that. Apparently, Giannis had a bad spill at some point. Also, is this on Negro Loco?
So here, so for chat doubting me, $139 in DK Madden, $6.96 on NBA DK, SuperDraft $12.93, and FanDuel $148.11. I cashed 3 separate days on their win from home and 3 different weeks on their win from home. That helped there. Oh, and I won an MMA ticket that I cashed too, and I'm not counting that in this. So.
Yeah, always grinding. Always be grinding.
I started tracking because I'm like, is this adding up? Is it even worth my time? The answer is yeah, it actually was. It actually was.
Also, looks like there are some overlays for the single game tournaments, according to some of our guys in the premium Slack. So I think FanDuel in particular looks like their showdown or their single game format on there is coming in a little short. So try to take advantage of the overlay, of course. Another thing that we do try to beat the drum of here is that taking advantage of overlay is going to be one of the smarter things you can do normally, including last night, even with that multi-way tie. Those tournaments did not fill, and you got to get more entries in when you can. 5 minutes here to lock, guys. So make sure to start getting
the FanDuel ones are going to go off about 20% empty. So they're going to almost rake them, but they've got a single entry that's 70% full. Let's put a team in there right now for fun, Chris. I got to make up my Chris Chiozza lineups.
I was so glad. I was like, I don't see it, man. I know he's been okay, and some limited sample sizes of garbage time, but Karras took the shots, man.
So let's put DeRozan in our MVP. Okay.
I like that.
I don't have him on any other lineup, so let's put him in there. Let's put, who do you think? DeJounte Murray as our times 2. Ooh, what about Derek White? DeJounte Murray wants to show out tonight.
I'd go DeJounte. I like the rebounding and all the things. He's a triple-double waiting to happen when he ever gets enough of a leash to do so.
Do you think, Jakob Poeltl? That's a worthwhile. Let's put him in at our pro, and that gives us some lineup flexibility. So let's put in Holmes and Poeltl. I may have to play Bazemore. Oh, I've got 14,500. So Buddy Hield, 500 more would get me De'Aaron Fox. Do you like Hield or Fox?
I mean, clearly you'd rather have Fox if you can find a way to get there.
Let's find a way to get there.
like Fox's floor, I think, is right there with Hield's ceiling.
Let's put in Bazemore.
Holmes or Curry and utility would be Holmes for me. So I think that one's just take the easy pick on that.
All right, here we go. So I'm going with DeRozan, DeJounte Murray, De'Aaron Fox, Kent Bazemore, and Bogdanovich. Is that my guy? Would you go Bogdanovich or White?
I have Bogdanovich projected stupidly well today, so I would say Bogdanovich.
I'm riding with Chris Spags.
Thank you.
There you go.
As you all should every time we have a stream here, and hit that like button if you got your lineups in too. We certainly need the support here, trying to keep the energy up, which is tough sometimes with these 2-game slates on a Friday evening. But you know what? Good news for you guys. Emac and I are running it back tomorrow in about 14 hours, 16 hours. Yes, we're right back on it, baby, for tomorrow, right before this a nice big slate tomorrow. I'll be waking up at 7 a.m. to get my prep ready, get my lineups in before we do a show. But it'll be fun. More time with your old pal, always a good news for me, even if I have to wake up early. Let's see, Emac, what do you see going south here? I like to ask this question now because we, for the most part, we hopefully have our lineups in. You can now reflect a little bit. I have to say, I do not like 30% own Dorian Finney-Smith for the people out there. I'm way under that one. That's one I would have probably tried to get away from pretty early.
I'm nervous about anybody that was dealing with COVID. So Barnes and Westbrook are my two that I have the most concerns about. I don't know what's going to happen with Lonnie Walker here. That's a little bit scary. You keep mentioning Eubanks, that he could play 20 minutes and Pirtle could play 20 minutes and Rudy Gay could get 8 at the center. And there you go. That would cap Pirtle. So there's a lot of potential quicksand traps for us tonight.
Yeah, it's funny. For a 2-game slate, there are still more than enough landmines to potentially avoid here.
Hey, all the games should be reminding us. Chris, sorry to cut you off. The Wizards all were horrible and arguably best matchup you can have unless you're playing yourself. And they played themselves, damn it. There was not one redeeming score there.
The Wizards Nets game, I assume that has to happen. I actually haven't looked at the schedule moving forward, but I assume that has to be coming up soon. That's going to be a fun one. I think that's one that Karis LeVert goes for like 1,000 points. That's where he makes it all up for the bomb today.
Let me see if I can call that up here. I should.
Also, Dog Fan, CWB in the chat saying that Westbrook capped at 30 per Fantasy Schmabs. I think the report was 30 to 34 was his minutes range expected. So, and it is Russ. So I wouldn't worry too much about the minutes limit there. If you're splitting hairs, I think that would give a little more love for Harden, which I already had anyway. So
they play on Sunday, 2:00, Washington and Brooklyn. Oh,
I gotta make sure to play Sunday then.
Why did I add a D on Brooklyn? I don't know. I just did it again. It's been
Brooklyn.
A long day.
That's the verb form when you've been Brooklyn. All right, guys.
Get the hook. Get this guy out of here.
We got, it's funny because we clearly have covered this slate about well enough, but I'm so OCD about we got to get this last minute, Emac. We got to get to 5 West Coast, 8 East Coast time. Because that's what the people demand out there. That's the extra level we'll go for you guys.
Yeah, but tomorrow we've got NHL, so that's starting at noon.
Oh, yeah.
So poke around, check out some if there's potential overlay there. If you're playing DK, they do have a new set of milestones that you can get over there. So those are always a lot of fun to check out. If you don't watch Jake Hari, his advice was go with power plays if we're not sure what the lines are going to be. And over here on our friends at SuperDraft, they're going with a 3:00 start. They're taking the 4 games that are available for NHL. So they are all set there. And of course, they have their multipliers. So you'll want to take a peek at that because I bet there will be overlay on that. Their large field tournament, you can only have 4 entries in it. So how do the multipliers work? Well, if you're amazing, like, Connor McDavid, you have a 1 multiplier. No respect for Sid the Kid, he's got a 1.3. But if you're someone like, let's pick a name I can actually pronounce down here. I can't pronounce any of these. McLeod, you have a 2.0 multiplier. You're probably not going to play, but you have double the chance. On an event-based sport like this, you definitely want to pay attention to those heavier multipliers.
For sure. And then again, pay attention to all the things coming up on this YouTube channel over the weekend. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you'll know whenever we have content coming up, because there's going to be a lot of it at different times as well, because of the way that this is working with all the sports starting at different scheduled times. And also, I forgot to mention earlier, there is still a free piece of premium content that goes on. And it's a helpful one because UFC is tomorrow. As I mentioned earlier, MMA, a very profitable sport for me during quarantine. So take advantage of that free tool. I'll even drop the link for you in the YouTube chat so you can check it out. And also watch, as I mentioned, Jason Floyd and Pete Rogers. Those guys are fantastic at what they do, and also just a fun show. I'm glad to have Jason doing a little more live before lock content. Wish Pete would do some more for us because Pete's my dude. I love Pete. But watch all that. Again, all the sports coming back. Jake's going to be doing some MLB stuff, doing some NHL stuff. Emac and I will be back tomorrow. And enjoy tonight's slate, guys. We wish you guys the best of luck because this is going to be a wild little two-gamer here. We'll be back soon. Enjoy your nights.